Good morning and welcome to the Extension Connection. We have the Morton County Extension staff here, minus one.
Yeah.
And I don't think Carla's listening.
She's on some vacay or something.
Yeah. Actually, I just talked to her, and she's at a track meet
Oh,
for her niece.
Oh,
so
good deal.
she said she's chilly up at the bowl today.
Yeah, I bet they are.
Yeah.
The wind, but it's a beautiful day.
Yes,
It'll get warmer.
It'll get warm. That's what she's looking forward for, the sun to come up a little higher and to shine down on them. So
to kind of give her a preview of what I'm going to talk about, hopefully she's got her sunscreen on because we're going to talk about skincare, and this is May is National Skin Cancer Awareness Month. So
actually my husband came home last night because he mows for the city out at the cemetery, and he said, I got sunburnt yesterday. And he said, I had my sunscreen on, he said, but
need to reapply.
Yes, reapply. Yes. Yep.
That's right. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit of.
Okay. Well, that sounds very interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about the equine encounter that's coming up. I'll take Carla's place and talk just a little bit about 4-H camp. We've got some things coming up. And there's some weed control guide updates that I want to discuss with producers. And then continue to scout for cutworms is another thing that I'll discuss very briefly. And then if anybody has any questions, they sure can feel free to call because we are live in the studio today. Jackie Buckley, Vanessa Hoynes, and Liz Larson, the Parenting Resource Coordinator, and, of course, Vanessa, the Family Consumer Science Agent. And you can call 663-1270, and we would be glad to try and answer any of your calls that might come in. Or you can call our office at 667-3340 if you have any other questions that you would like, or if you're too bashful to talk on the radio.
But it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. Yep. And we usually don't know who it is anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Ask anonymously.
Yes, ask anonymously, and we won't say your name if we recognize your voice.
Although, I think we did have one caller that called in, and we did know who it was.
We did. Yes. And so I would like to remind all you horse lovers out there that the NDSU Extension Service is holding 4 different equine encounters to be held. The one in Morton County will be held on June 8th, and it will be held at a producer's place. And so what we're doing is we're meeting at the Flying J truck stop west of Mandan, which is exit 147. And on June 8th, we're meeting there at 5:30 p.m. And then we'll leave about 20 minutes to 6. And then we'll get to Delmer Schlinker's location. And then we'll have registration and we'll have supper. There is a $5 charge to cover the cost for supper. And youth are very much welcome because we're going to be covering some youth events as well. And then we have the program starting about 6:15. And so some of the things that we'll be talking about are deworming protocols and vaccination. And Russ Voigt, or Dr. Russ Voigt, I guess I should call him. He's a former 4-H member from Morton County, so I just know him as Russ. And Russ is a veterinarian. He works at the Missouri Valley Vet Clinic, and he has graciously agreed to come and talk to horse owners and kids and youth about deworming protocols. Mary Berg, Extension Nutrient Management Specialist, will be talking about equine nutrient management. And Delmer has a manure pile that we're going to go in and talk about some things, what he's doing there, and talk about how to handle your horse manure.
I'm a bit concerned about this hands-on experience they're planning to have with manure. I'm glad they're eating first.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
We're eating, and we're doing it after we eat supper, so we should be good.
We don't want to have lots of outbreaks of who knows what.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be talking about biosecurity. And for horse owners, this is very important, especially like, say, for instance, you have a farrier that may come to your place, and then somebody else might bring their horses there. Or you show horses, or you are a rodeo person. You want to make sure, we're going to talk about, how do you don't share buckets. You don't share your feed troughs. You want to make sure, and you don't share your equipment because there's diseases and things like that can be spread. And so I'll be visiting about that. And then we're having Kevin Sedovic come. Kevin is our range management specialist.
Hometown boy.
Hometown boy, yes, he's from Mandan. And Kevin is also a very avid horseman, and he has lots of horses. He lives up by between Mayville and Hillsboro. And I'm a friend of his wife's on Facebook, and she is always posting lots of pictures about horses. And so he's going to talk about horse pasture management, and we're going to actually do a pasture walk at Delmer's, and we're going to do maybe a little test, like a little weed and
for identification.
Plant identification. And maybe we'll have some prizes.
That sounds fun.
That's nice.
It's the most plants right. And so, and controlling those pesky weeds. And because horse owners, when they turn their horses out on the pasture, horses, because of the way their teeth are structured, they can get very close to the ground when they graze, and they can get overgraze very easily. And so weeds are a factor in many horse pastures, and we're going to talk about that. Also going to talk a little bit about some rotational grazing systems, which Delmer does some of that, and so we're anxious to be at that event.
It's going to be a lot of information.
Yeah, that's nice of him to host.
Yes,
host it also.
Yes, it is.
Well, one thing you'll have to think about with that quiz kind of thing is if you're going to be willing to accept the slang names, or if there has to be the name that all the ranchers know it by, or what the true name is.
Yeah. So once again, that's going to be on June 8th, and we'll start at 5:30 by meeting at the Flying J truck stop west of town, and then couple of tidbits is that Delmer does not allow any smoking at the site, which is something that's important, and there will be no restrooms at the site, but we're only a few minutes away, and so if we need to run back and forth, I think that'll work. And so please feel free to call our office at 667 for more information on this event. And Jim is cueing us that we need to go to a break, and we'll be back with the Extension Connection after the break.
Right now, 63.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
This is Extension Connection. You're back with Jackie Buckley, Vanessa Hoynes, and myself, Liz Larson. And I'm going to talk a little bit as we're getting ready for summer. Kids are going to be out of school really soon, days away. I'm sure they all have a countdown.
Yeah, probably to the minute.
Probably to the minute, yeah. But one of the things we think about as we're getting ready for summer is at what age can you leave your kids home alone? Babysitting gets expensive. The kids want to be more independent, all that kind of stuff. So there's some good guidelines you can find online from North Dakota Department of Human Services, that Children and Family Service Division. So we're kind of looking at each age range, they break it down. So they kind of say for kids 8 and under, they should be supervised at all times with a caregiver available, and should not be left in charge of other children. And then when they reach that age 9, they should not be left unsupervised for longer than maybe 2 hours during the day. So that's that limited time. And they shouldn't be in charge of other kids, so younger siblings or neighbors, that kind of thing. Even if you have a really responsible 9-year-old, they're still pretty little. And then when they reach that 10 and 11 years old, maybe leaving them for a longer period of time. So a few hours longer, half a day, something like that. But again, they shouldn't be supervising any other children, any other siblings. And then around that 11 and 12 years old, they can take Vanessa's babysitting classes. I think she's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yep.
So they can act as a babysitter, and obviously you want them to be trained and informed and making sure that they themselves are developmentally ready to be in charge of other kids. But still at that 12 years old, you want to make sure you're being aware of how long you're keeping them home alone, not doing overnights away or taking the weekend to go on a trip or something, none of that. And then the last age range they break it down into is those teenagers. So again, under 15, they really say shouldn't be left alone at night. And then being cautious about the 15 to 17-year-olds, really thinking twice about being away for a weekend, or maybe it's just part of a night.
I think we've all seen those movies and how that can go.
Yeah, many things could go wrong, right? So good questions to ask yourself as you're thinking about maybe your child's in between some of those age ranges and you think, well, are they ready for 2 hours alone? Are they not? You can kind of take into some other factors here is the maturity of the child, maybe their own emotional adjustments or abilities, any physical or mental limitations they might have, thinking about how long they'll be alone, again, what time of day or night. Even kids that are responsible might get a little leery in the evening hours. We all kind of have a heightened sense of awareness. Again, being aware of how many other kids are going to be present. Maybe you have a neighborhood. Are there kids that will say, hey, your mom said you have to stay in the house, but no, you can come out. Are your kids able to say no to peer pressure? And then keeping in mind the location. Are they going to be close by to neighbors, or how far away are you going to be? So there's lots of different things. It's not just an easy, they're 12 or they're 15.
Yeah,
there's
right.
Lots of things we got to take into account.
Yeah, there's nothing magic about those ages, and I think all the research will show that too. It just really is dependent on the child and having that discussion with them.
Yep, exactly. So that they can kind of talk through it themselves as well. And that's a good point. You want to have lots of conversations before you even get to the point where you're leaving them home alone. You want to make sure they know what to do as far as basic first aid, what to do if there's a fire, that they know where flashlights are, if it's evening hours, if it...
And even if you're trying it out for a shorter amount of time, an hour or so, having a discussion about even some plans for what they will do during that time, so that they're not just sitting idle or trying to find something to do that may or may not be a good idea. That can also be helpful. So if they have something that that would be fun that they enjoy doing, but that they can do safely without somebody there.
Some kind of project or something.
And
don't leave them home to mow the lawn.
Right.
It's probably not a good idea.
Right. And then having that ability to be able to do some, practicing, getting ready for that, and just seeing what they think about the place by themselves. Because sometimes if they haven't ever been there by themselves, they don't realize what it's like.
Yep, exactly. All the different questions. Well, and planning ahead with meals or snacks, so they won't have to be cooking or even microwaving things very much, or walking through the steps of how to prepare their food while they're gone.
Yeah, having a good plan, especially about eating.
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah. Otherwise, your snack drawers will be raided, and you have a sick kid when you come back.
Yeah, and just the safety issue, so that they have an idea about what they should be doing and what they shouldn't.
Exactly. So lots of good things. So you can consider these questions or tips. So we talked about, how does your child feel about the situation? Are they comfortable? Trying it out. Looking at their age and behavior and their own judgment. In other situations, how do they use their good judgment? What responsibilities will they be left with while you're gone? And then are they able to handle those? And then all those questions about how long they'll be left alone, and making sure they know how long they'll be left alone. Any kind of safety risks, we want to avoid those. So making sure smoke detectors are up to date and doors are locked and they're not going to answer the door if someone comes.
And even how they'll communicate with you, or who they could communicate with if there's an issue.
Yep, exactly.
And I hesitate to say an emergency, because it might not be an emergency, but it might be something that they need to talk to somebody
they just have a question, or they feel uncomfortable. Just want to be able to talk through some of it. So lots of good things to keep in mind. And some of the things are, even if you have a babysitter in your house, keeping your house address and any important phone numbers posted right by a house phone if you have one. I guess a lot of people don't have house phones anymore. So making sure whoever's in the home has access to a phone of some sort, walking through what that looks like. And so lots of things to keep in mind when you're getting ready this summer and thinking about, is your child ready to stay home alone, or what will that look like? And I don't know if you wanted to touch on your babysitter class or anything while we're on the topic.
Sure, yes. There will be we have some scheduled coming up in both June and July, June 22nd or 23rd, and July 13th or 14th. And so those are 4 separate different workshops. Kids can sign up and plan to spend the most of the day. They run from 9:30 to 3 o'clock. And they do fill up fast, so if you're interested in that, please give us a call and we can get you on the registration website and get you signed up. But just a lot of the things that Liz was talking about, obviously we talk with the babysitters about and give them some basics in leadership skills, being able to handle the behavior of the child that they're watching. Talking about even starting their business, what it means to have a business and how you go about doing that. Because one of the most uncomfortable things as a babysitter is, do I charge something or do I just take what they're giving me? And so we kind of talk through that, and that sometimes there are differences based on, is it a relative, is it a good friend, is it a neighbor, and do you have maybe a different expectation for payment versus somebody who has maybe even more children or has you have less of a connection with,
and what age the kids are, how many kids there will be,
all those kinds of things, and so how you broach that subject and work with that. And then we also spend a lot of time discussing safety, whether it's the safety of them as the babysitter and also safety as the children that they're watching. We talk a lot about the weather and the other things that can be going on around us and how to take care of that. First aid, we also touch on, and obviously giving them some good tips about when it goes beyond where they can really help and they need to get in. They need to call 911 or get a hold of somebody else to help in that situation.
Good, lots of good things. That's a full day.
It is a full day, and we talk about basic child care and some things, and they get a great resource book that they can use, which breaks down some of the child development age groups so that they can kind of page in the book and look ahead. If they know that they're going to be caring for a 3 or 4 year old, then they have an idea about what a 3 or 4 year old is like, the kinds of things that they like to do.
That's a good resource.
It really is a fun little book. It's spiral bound, so it's easy for them, and it even has some ideas for games and activities to do with different age group ages of children. And so it's kind of a nice resource that they can add to their babysitting bag. And we do make a babysitting bag while they're there, and we have them start kind of a small first aid kit to help them get started.
There's a fee, though, right?
Oh, yes. The registration cost is $25, and they also do need to bring their lunch for the day.
Oh, let's pack a lunch.
So, which is kind of fun, too. I always liked to pack a lunch when I was a kid. That was
exactly
a fun thing to do.
And it's the summer break, so you haven't had it as much lately, right?
That's right. And then we do talk about too getting started, and that if you are 11 or they're getting 11, almost 12, how you probably don't want to start with 3 kids. You want to work slowly into that.
Get used to.
We are, I think, needing to take a quick break here, and we'll be back with the Extension Connection in just a few minutes.
Right now, 63.
News and Views with Joel Heitkamp. Weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
All right, we're back with Extension Connection. I'm Liz Larson, the Parent Resource Coordinator, and then we still have Vanessa Hoynes and Jackie Buckley here. I'm going to quick wrap up what I'm talking about today and touch a little bit on a class we have coming up. So it's called Parents Forever. So this is a class designed for parents that are going through divorce, or maybe they were never married but are separating. So this is a one-time class. It's a 4-hour kind of half-day class designed for parents to learn those valuable skills about how you walk through a separation yourself, but also how do you get the kids through that transition time. So a lot of good topics about self-care, and so it's not even just about the kids. I know that's an important part too, but kind of how do you keep that parent-child relationship healthy? How do you be respectful in the co-parenting that you're going to have to do? So it's just a 4-hour class. Like I said, there is a fee attached to it. So it's a $55 fee that's due 2 weeks before class. And this one is going to be held on Saturday. So those of you who are working, this will be maybe a little easier for you to get to. So it's Saturday, June 11th, in the morning, 8:30 until 12:30. So if you can register before May 27th, that would be great. So we have an idea on numbers and if we have enough to keep class. And it's at the Morton County Courthouse, so pretty easy to get to, just downtown. If you have any questions, you can give me a call at 667-3342 or register via phone or online as well.
Yeah. And it's really easy parking on Saturday morning there,
yes,
too.
There won't be anyone you have to fight for parking with.
Get a front
row
center.
Yeah, front row spot.
And that's a really great program, whether you've even been separated for a while and just how to work through that co-parenting and being able to still both parent, but... Well,
I think sometimes parents wait until it's recommended or required by the courts or something, but really beneficial to just do it ahead of time on your own, as soon as you realize that your family's going through that transition, to get some support and, be in a room full of other parents that kind of, you can brainstorm some new ideas on how to help your kids through it and even get some support for yourself as well.
And even, every family is different, but in many cases, there's lots of things that are the same.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So Vanessa's going to touch base on some summer things, maybe?
Yeah. As I had mentioned in the opener, May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And so I thought, it's a good opportunity to talk about skin cancer and ways to keep our skin healthy and some things to think about. And I do have one date that's coming up that you can mark on your calendar. It's called Don't Friday. And it's on the last Friday of the month of May. So it's the Friday be right before Memorial Day. So this year it falls on Friday, May 27th. And as you might assume, it is a way to kind of bring awareness to enjoying the outdoors, but not getting that sunburn that we all probably have had at one time in our lifetime, but wished we didn't. And so the other piece that goes along with Don't Friday is slip, slap, slap, and wrap. So have you heard that before?
That's a mouthful. No.
Yeah. Well, it's slip on a shirt, slap on some sunscreen, slap on a wide-brimmed hat, and wrap on sunglasses. So you can. So it might be kind of a fun little thing that you can do with your kids to remind them to slip, slop, slap, and wrap. And we'll talk about some of those things. But of course, the sun rays that we're most concerned about are the ultraviolet rays. And as we mentioned even in the opener, sometimes even if it's not sunny outside, we still have ultraviolet rays that are making their way through. So even on a cloudy day, you can get a sunburn. And for those of us we're coming out of winter, we all know too that you can get a sunburn in winter and fall also. So it's not just the summertime, but obviously we're probably outside more in the summer, and we probably have a little more skin exposed
than when we're bundled in the winter.
Yeah. So when we're skiing, we just have our nose that gets it or whatever. But some of the things we need to be aware of is that there are those of us that have a few more risk factors when it comes to sunburns, and we're just a little bit more susceptible. So people who have pale skin, who have blonde, red, or light brown hair might be more susceptible. Anybody who has been treated for skin cancer would be another one that would be more at risk and should be aware of it. And then also if you've had a family member who has had skin cancer, those are all put you in a different class for risk and making sure that you're being protected. And I know we have lots of people in our community whose careers take them outside and keep them outside. And so those folks definitely need to be aware of that and making sure that they are putting something on to protect their skin. And there's lots of ways you can do that. You can, as that slip, slop, slap, wrap kind of talks about, you can slip on a shirt. There, if you have clothing on, it doesn't have to be heavy. It just needs to be a layer of clothing can be a benefit, whether it's a hat, whether it's a long sleeve shirt. All those things can help to protect you a little bit more from the sun.
I know I've seen a lot of the swim tops for kids that actually have some UV protection in them. Mm-hmm. Talk about a lifesaver. You don't have to sunscreen up as often, and not the whole body, but those are kind of, and they sell them at Target or
and they're not expensive, but it's just a matter of looking for that and encouraging kids to use it, because then the slop is putting on that sunscreen, and just as Liz mentioned, a lot of times we get it on the first time, and it's supposed to be put on 15 minutes before you go outside. You might get that done, but then you send them off to the pool or send them off to raging rivers, and if they're there for extended times, they're in and out of the water. So you want to make sure you do have something that's a little bit more water resistant. But even then, with all of their playing in the water, we still need to keep reapplying, and that's the piece that sometimes we miss. I know when my kids were younger too, it's like you encourage them, even train their friends to have them each put their sunscreen on each other, and it only goes so far. They can only do so well.
But maybe when they're getting out for a snack or something, they're going to dry off for a few minutes. Use it to slap on more sunscreen.
Slap on. Yeah. Slap on some more sunscreen. Now, they're talking about looking for at least 30 SPF just to make sure that you're getting protection. Some other things with slopping on that sunscreen is that for the rest of us that might not be going to a pool or those kinds of things, even that day-to-day sun exposure, putting on for women, a lot of times it's easy to find moisturizers that have, or makeups that have SPF. And so that's a really good thing to do. But then even using that moisturizer on your hands, on your forearms, those are all places that are almost always exposed. Especially then, there are moisturizers for men also that can be used that way. And I mentioned that because they're not like a sunscreen. They're not like a typical sunscreen, but they still can give some protection for folks who are out in the field, outside in the pastures, who are driving a lot. Yeah. Oddly enough, and probably not too odd, a lot of times the left side of folks is where they get more sun. They get more sun exposure when they're driving, if they're the driver, and many times that's where you will find skin cancer.
I had a family member that was the case. He was a salesman, and on the side of his face is where his first skin cancer was diagnosed.
Yep, and they find that more often than not, especially men, because men tend to be more often the driver. And so, things to think about in regards to that too. And then slap on a wide-brimmed hat, again, being able to protect not only the top of your head. Some of us are less endowed when it comes to hair. And so if you do not have as much hair, you do need to make sure that you put some sunscreen on exposed skin on the top of your head also, or wear a hat is another great way to be able to protect your head and your skin there also. And then the wrap on the sunglasses. I think this is something that sunglasses are not a fashion statement. They are something that we need to protect our eyes from the sun. And even when I think about little kids that will get those little cutesy sunglasses and will be wearing them, they're cute, but unfortunately they probably don't have the UVA and UVB protection. And you want to find sunglasses that are between 99 and 100%. Protection for UVA and UVB. And so those are probably not the sunglasses you're going to find at the convenience stores. You're probably going to need to search them out and find them.
It's an investment in keeping your eyes healthy.
That definitely, and especially with kids, when you think about how many days they have ahead of them, how many years they have ahead of them of being out in the sun. And if you do have kids who need glasses, even choosing the glasses that automatically change so that they can have that protection. They don't have to be changing glasses all the time and have to be more concerned about that. Some other things with just keeping our skin healthy is during the summer, making sure that we're staying hydrated. That has a lot to do with the health of our skin. And so our bodies consist of about 60% water. And depending on our age and gender and other factors, we need to replenish that liquid. And usually on the average, women need about 9 cups of liquid and men about 13. And the good thing is that you don't have to drink all that. In fact, all the liquids that we consume count. So when you eat things like fruits and vegetables that are rich in liquid and rich in water, you also can count that, along with other, if you'd like a cup of coffee here and there, those do count for that fluid also.
All right, I'm good for the day so far.
You've been guzzling down some coffee, huh? So keep some other tips, though, to making sure that you do get enough fluids besides eating those good fruits and vegetables, which, of course, they also give us some good vitamins and minerals that can help to nourish our skin. But keeping a glass of water by you on your desk, having soup more often as a first course, and maybe having fruit for a dessert can be another way to get more fluid. Bringing water bottles with you when you go on adventures outside, or going to different, if it's meetings or those kinds of things. And I think a lot of people are really doing that. I see people carrying a beverage with them, whether it's water or something like that, to stay hydrated. And then you can also visit our NDSU website and just Google boomers, and you will find other information about ways that we can protect and nourish our skin during this whole month of May. And we are going to take a quick break.
Right now it's 66.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to the Extension Connection, and Liz just about fell off her chair.
I'm so excited about camp.
Literally, she almost fell off her chair.
I'm just like to remind our youth out there and parents is that we are still taking registrations for camp.
Although they are getting full.
Yes,
so
we are.
Don't wait.
Yes, and some of the camps are full, especially the horse camps, especially are getting close to that full, their maximum amount that they will take. We're at like about 440 kids, and so our goal this year is 500. And so we're not that far away. And so hopefully we can get there. I'd like to remind everybody that the early bird registration, where you can get, is it $25 off? Yes, most of our camps. And that deadline is May 20th. And so that's
coming right up.
Yeah.
Coming right up next week.
2 days from now.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Yes, Friday.
Friday.
So if you are interested in signing up and to get the early bird registration, please do that.
Especially if you have a kid that wants to go with a friend, or you'd hate for one to get in and not the other.
Right. Yes. And so
Sign up.
we've got lots of different kinds of camps scheduled, and there's lots. If you have different interests, there's lots of different things that you can do when you attend camp. And so the camp has been completely remodeled. And we have new bunk beds and new restrooms, and the mess hall or the eating facility is all newly remodeled, and they redid the floor. It looks awesome.
Yeah, all nice and sparkly, shiny. And
Yeah, you guys were up there cleaning last week, so it's ready for the summer.
Yep, and they trimmed a bunch of trees, which we needed to do quite badly. We had some cottonwoods that were showing a little worse for wear, and so I talked to Willie Hewitt, who was an agent in Grand Forks. He was there doing some of the trimming, and he said that several of our trees have been hit by lightning.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes even more than once. And so that's why a lot of those trees were looking kind of shabby.
And they're old.
Yes, they are.
It's a nice stand of trees.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of summers.
Yes, they have. And so please, if you're interested, call our office if you're interested in registering for camp, or you can go online and do that too. So if you, I'm sure if you Google North Dakota 4-H camp, something will come up and you're able to register online. I'd like to talk a little bit about a weed control update that Dr. Rich Zollinger and Kirk Howitt put out. There's been a lot of questions about herbicide-resistant weeds and trying to use a different burn down prior to planting. And I know it's getting a little late for that, but it is safe to use 2,4-D. Dr. John Nalawaya, who used to be an NDSU weeds scientist, he's since passed away. He tested 2,4-D, applied pre on wheat, and found wheat to have excellent tolerance to 2,4-D. And in the early weed guides, it was based on the wording that you would be able to do this. The weed control suggestions presented in this guide are based on information obtained from the North Dakota Ag Experiment Station. So in 2009, weed scientists changed the rotation in the weed guide to reflect that you need 30 days of rotation restriction following 2,4-D as shown on product labels. Earlier this spring, Dr. Kirk Howitt reviewed this restriction on several labels from different registrations or different manufacturers of 2,4-D. He found the label wording had changed at some undetermined point. Some of the labeled crops within 29 days after application of 2,4-D plant only those crops listed on this or the registered labels. Follow more specific limitations, if any, provided in the directions for specific crops. For some of the other crops, all other crops may be planted 30 or more days after the application without concern for illegal residues in the planted crop, so the 2,4-D doesn't injure the crop that you may be planting. However, under certain conditions, there may be a risk of injury to susceptible crops. Degradation factors described below should be considered in weighing in this risk of making the application. Under normal conditions, any crop may be planted without risk of injury, if at least 90 days of soil temperatures are above freezing have elapsed since the application. Dr. Howitt has paraphrased some of this. Crops labeled for in-season 2,4-D application can be seeded within 29 days of treatment. Number 2, crops not labeled for treatment with 2,4-D in season cannot be seeded until 30 days after the application of 2,4-D. Thirdly, none of the labels included a minimum waiting period for crops on the label. Fourthly, all labels reviewed used essentially the same wording. And one last point, 2,4-D ester degrades significantly faster and more rapid than 2,4-D amine, and you can look at your weed control guide on page 67 for more information about this. And so use a 2,4-D ester to decrease the risk of any crop response following a pre-2,4-D application. So that's not something new that has come out, but they've kind of just redone the label, and so you might want to think about that if you're making that application. Or, I guess most of the small grains are already in, but you might want to think about that. Mm-hmm. Also, for those of you that are putting in sunflowers, and then if you have corn in and canola, you will want to watch out for cutworms and continue to scout for them. There's still a bit of a problem with them. And so if we keep this warmer temperatures, the cutworm activity does go down. And so hopefully they aren't going to cause too much more damage. Vanessa, do you have a couple minutes to talk about some things maybe? Or Liz?
Yeah, I have a couple things. There is a new series of publications that are just in time for the gardener, and they're called Field to Fork. They're kind of one page or 2 page, both sides, publications that deal with each of them talks about a different fruit or vegetable that we grow here in North Dakota. And I brought along with me, we have one that's on snap beans and one that's on leafy greens. And each of these publications gives you some information about how to grow them. So as you're planting your gardens, it kind of gives you some idea about best practices with, how far apart to plant them, when to plant them, when to expect that you'd be able to harvest them, and so on. And then they also talk about some preservation. So like, for example, the snap peas, it gives you some tips about how to freeze them, if you want to freeze them, also how to can them. And of course, if you're going to can green beans, snap beans, you do need to have a pressure canner unless you're planning to pickle them. So if you'd like to pickle them, you can do that in the boiling water bath. And then on the back side, which is really exciting, there are recipes to use that particular fruit or vegetable. And so like on the back of the snap beans, you will find a recipe for pickled dill beans, So kind of if you like that crunchy green bean that tastes like a dill pickle kind of thing. A super creamy vegetable soup. A snap bean provincial, which is kind of a different way to serve those a hot green bean, and then also fresh green beans with creamy basil dip. So eating those, just cleaning them up from the garden, bringing them in, and then serving them with this basil dip.
And that's something that a lot of people don't eat them raw. I
No.
guess I don't. And I don't even think about eating them raw.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's kind of fun. The recipes on the back give you some different ways that you might not have thought of preparing them. And so
a picnic right by the garden.
Yeah, just bring your
the
dip
dip
along
out.
and wash them a little bit.
Yeah.
But, and make sure it is your garden.
Yeah. Going back to watch that manure.
Yeah. So go online and go to our website, and if you enter in, just search for Field to Fork, these will all come up, and there's tomatoes, onions, squash, apples, garlic. Yep, there's lots of them out there. So look for them, and we do have them in our office also, so you can always call us at 667-3340. And with that, I think we are off today. We will be back in 2 weeks again with the Extension Connection. So if in the meantime, if you need us, you know where to find us.